I, for the most part, had a big issue or barrier of opening up to girls. I had
Mm,
this, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep it to myself. I'll just work on it by myself. She doesn't need to know. And I think in some
right.
cases you don't need to open up about everything, but there are some things that you definitely should share because I remember in my last relationship, I would say to her, I'd be like, "Oh, well, I don't want to open up to it because I don't think you can give me like valid advice for it. Like, I don't think you understand the situation. So I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
the situation. I don't want to complain about it. I only want to talk about it if I think there's something that's gonna come for it,
Right.
and help me be better. But I failed to realize that well, I didn't try, so maybe I could have shared it, and maybe she would have had valid advice to give or a
Yeah.
perspective that would have changed something, right? And
Yep.
this just goes back to trying and to opening up because, especially as a man, I would say vulnerability is hard, but
Mm,
it's necessary because without that, I've really started to realize without vulnerability in your romantic partnership, you can only get like this close. Whereas if you were a little bit more vulnerable, you would finally get to be intertwined, right? But
yep.
for me, there always felt like there was this little bit of a barrier pushing me back. And, ultimately, I don't think it was at the fault of any of my partners. It was just something lacking within me.
Not opening up necessarily because you don't know that they'll necessarily understand the situation. But to tie in, this is another opportunity to practice curiosity, right? Instead of coming to them for specific advice or like, what do I do? Say, hey, look, I'm not necessarily looking to solve this problem, but I'd love to hear your perspective on this situation. Or what are your thoughts on these circumstances? And not from the lens of solving or from, working out of it, but like, I'd love to hear your thoughts and you're like, where does your mind go? Because I'm feeling a little stuck on this. A lot of the time, I find we as men have two lenses on when our partner comes to us. We're listening from either they have a problem that they want us to help solve, or we did something that they didn't like or that they want to change. And so now I need to listen in terms of like it's almost a defensive lens, right? So what you're about to tell me, I either need to solve a problem or defend because you're telling me I did it wrong, right? And so these are kind of the two main lenses that most men hear words from a partner through. A lot of the time when women come to men, they want this third option that we don't even know exists, which is they just want us to listen. And then the kind of lighter side of it is listen without problem solving, give them a hug, tell them it's okay, and then grab their ass and carry on. Right. And that's kind of like we don't often, as men, listen through those lenses without prompts. And so, one of the suggestions I've made a few times now is if you're a female in a relationship looking for this option from your partner, is like, look, I don't need you to solve my problems. Because a lot of times we as men, you're like, look, if you just did something, this would go away and you wouldn't have to keep complaining about it. Most of the time, that's not what they want to do. They want you to say, I hear you, your feelings are valid, and I'm here for you and love you, and everything's okay. Right? So, preemptively saying, hey, you, man, in the relationship, when I come to you, I'm going to warn you and say, all I need you to do is listen. I need you to hug me, and I need you to tell me that you love me, whatever these things are. And so that when that time comes, we don't find this kind of frustration, right? There's friction when she's like, all you need to do is listen, and you never listen. You're like, all you need to do is fix it, and you never fix it. It never gets better, right? So say, hey, this is one of those times. Shut your mouth, listen to me. I'll give you a nod and then hug me, okay? Like, I got you, right? And then it's kind of a game. You're like, ah, everything's okay. I'm here for you. Here's a hug and everything's all right, right? And it's kind of this way to de-escalate the situation before it happens. And I find it's very, very common in right now in my sphere of people. I've had a lot of conversations this past month about this exact same thing. And is it a great solution for everybody? No. However, I do think that it's a good tool to add to the toolbox because we as men don't generally think of, oh, all they want us to do is listen. what good does that do? Because generally, to bring it back to what you're saying about your partner, is like she doesn't have the solution, so why would I bring it up? But then the back end of that is she doesn't feel included or important in your life,
Hmm.
right? So to say to her in reverse, I'm not looking for a solution, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I value your thoughts and your opinion, and I just want to include you in what's going on in my world. It's the alternate, right? It's both sides of those are valuable, and neither side generally does either one.